Already introduced our instructors and said thank you to the Genome Science and Technology group for starting this course and supporting the course. So it's a short course, it's 1 credit hour. But I hope we can accomplish a lot in this 1 week. I'd like you to be able to apply basic bioinformatics theory and tools to analyze transcriptome data sets, to be able to effectively communicate and critically assess the application of bioinformatics tools to transcriptome data. And this can be important because a lot of scientists go on the future, maybe they aren't processing their own data, but they need to be able to decide how to work with a bioinformaticist and understand what they're doing and how to make sure the data is being processed correctly, or how to read a paper critically and understand whether or not it has been executed in a reasonable manner. Have we used reasonable software? Have the authors come to a good conclusion? Do you want stickies? You know the sticky system. And then basic competence in the Unix shell, R scripting, and uses of bioinformatic tools from the command line. And a lot of people really are not too enthusiastic to learn the command line. Some people embrace it and are like, this is so cool, this is great. And some people are like, this is a real pain. Why are we doing this? And hopefully by the end of the course, you'll really see the power of the command line. You can process, you can go, we're gonna use a really tiny data set as an example for this class, but I hope one day all of you have 50 files or 100 files or terabytes of data that you need to process. And it's gonna be really difficult to do that through web servers, through an HTTP connection. You need to be able to get on a supercomputer. You need to be able to leverage those hundreds of computing cores that UT is going to invest in and has been investing in. And the best way to do that is from the command line. Another thing is you can get on Cybers, you can get on Galaxy. It's gonna be slow, but it might work. That sounds great, except you have a very limited choice of software. You have to use what they've already installed for you. Once you know how to use the command line, you can install whatever software you want. If you have an awesome collaborator who has written the next greatest thing and has sent you a copy, you can install it, you can run it. You don't have to call some person in California or in Texas to install this software and wait 3 months. You're gonna have that toolkit yourself, and that's really powerful. So the command line, it's gonna be good. It's a steep learning curve, but I think it's really useful to learn. The syllabus has all of the normal UTK syllabus stuff. I won't go through it line by line, but it's pretty standard. You're always welcome to email me or email anybody in my lab if you have any problems. We'll stay after class every day. So the class ends at 11:30. We will stay in the room until 12 to help you if there's anything in the lesson that was confusing, anything you have concerns about, just stay and ask us. We have some people in here that I know are very experienced with the command line, and we have some people that I'm not sure where you are. So if by the end of today's lesson, if you're frustrated and you still need some practice, we're gonna meet actually in the next room over, which is 118, I think, at 2 p.m. So you can come back and get help or talk to us if you're concerned. We'll be there also at 2 p.m. today. So if you are enrolled as a student, I will be grading you. And the first 50% is very easy. You'll get 5 points will accrue for every, so you're building toward 100 points, 100 total points in the course. So just showing up, I'm gonna give you 5 points. Being here, absorbing the material, watching me go through it, that's a big part of the learning experience. Also, at the end of each day, I'm gonna tell you 1 file that you need to email me to prove that you are actually paying attention, typing in the commands, doing what you need to do to learn the material. And that gets you 50% of your grade right there. The second 50%, we're gonna do a writing assignment. Select a peer-reviewed journal article that centers around RNA-seq analysis. And this is just with our course objectives. I kind of want you to show me that you're doing this, thinking deeply about RNA-seq, thinking about the tools that people are applying to RNA-seq, and talking about how what you learn in this class is going to help you interpret papers in the future and hopefully run your own RNA-seq analysis. If you're concerned, if you have an article that you're like, I don't know if this fits or not, you're welcome to email it to me by the end of the week and I'll give you the thumbs up or thumbs down. And then the last day of class is Friday, and you'll have a full week after this Friday to send me the article writing assignment. And many of you are graduate students, so it's probably not particularly intimidating to write a 2-page paper. But if this is not something you've done a lot of, maybe if you're new to graduate school, I've given you some questions to kickstart your thinking, to help you kind of think about what types of things should I be thinking about with this article? What are some ways that I can apply my new knowledge? So it's always good when starting reviewing an article to describe the study's hypothesis. Is it a testable hypothesis? Have they set it up as a reasonable experiment? Why use RNA-seq? There's a lot of biological questions in the world. RNA-seq is not always the right way to answer those biological questions. It actually has a lot of drawbacks. So why was it good or bad, in this case, to select it? Was it appropriate? Finally, what is the experimental design? We're going to talk a little bit about how to set up an appropriate, statistically robust experimental design. For the paper that you select, you should discuss, did the authors do that? Was this a reasonable approach? What software was used? Did it differ significantly from what we used in class? Did you do, if you want to do some research into those packages and say they chose this package because it made more sense for this reason, that would be good to point out. Maybe a summary of the results. How are the data interpreted? And then some of your personal ideas as to the strengths and the weaknesses of the paper and what follow-up studies you would recommend to be conducted to further this work. So that should get you plenty. That's a lot of questions. That should get you through 2 pages pretty fast. Okay, so everybody got a red and a green sticky. And this is something I have shamelessly stolen from the software carpentry group. When they teach software carpentry, which is similar to this, it's a 2-day introduction to the command line. Everybody gets a red sticky and a green sticky. And if you're having trouble, if you're stuck, you've started typing the commands from lesson, it is not working, you stick the red sticky on your laptop, or you can hold it up in the air. And we have 5 other instructors here, they will come help you one-on-one. We have a great instructor to student ratio in this class. So there is always someone who can come sit next to you and give you help. If one of the instructors is standing up here and saying, does that make sense? Are we all on the same page? Is everyone done? You can put the green sticky on your computer screen. So it's kind of a green light, red light system. And if I see a sea of red stickies go up, I know I have said something that is not working for everyone or everyone's confused. So it gives the instructors a lot of feedback on how the class is progressing so that we don't move too fast. So don't be afraid to use them, and you will get help pretty quickly. I do this in my 3 credit hour class too. And like by the end of the semester, the stickies aren't sticky anymore, and it's really funny, but we have to pass out new stickies. But it works well. So do you guys have any questions immediately? Anything come to mind that's you're interested in? Since we have 4 extra minutes, I think it would be really nice to go around the room and everybody just say who they are, what department they're from. Maybe if you have like a 1 sentence, like I'm super interested in RNA-seq for this reason. So I'll start. I'm Meg. I'm from entomology and plant pathology. I like to use RNA-seq to look at plant genomics, particularly dormancy and root physiology.
Yeah. I'm Tim Edens. I work in the plant systems group at Oak Ridge. I've been using Poplar transcript data.
I'm Javier Vargas. I work for Dr. Kim Ross in wheat science, physiology, and herbicides. And genetic class was about 22 years ago, so we'll see.
You've been doing RNA-seq with us, so.
I'm Chigang Deng from China. I studied here for 1 year, the Max lab, plant science.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Sheldon from First Lab Plant Research, and I plan to use RNA-seq to study microbial community in Gulf of Mexico. I like to look at some functional genes in microbial community, coastal marshes.
So like meta-transcriptomics.
Right.
Oh, that'll be fun. Okay.
So I'm Bobby Whitman. I'm here to help you guys get on some of our resources and start computing with us. So we kind of have an interest in all this too, so let's stick around and try to learn something.
I'm Wenjing from the Department of Animal Science. I need to learn RNA-seq techniques and the analysis method for my research, which is about the liquid metabolism and balsam metabolism gene.
My name is Tal Ganisov. I'm in the Department of Microbiology, math, and I've never used data sets bigger than probably like 100 lines, so I want to learn how people deal with bigger than that. Including RNA-seq.
I'm Jay, PCMP of Brandon student. I'm university there and try to
My name is Martin Novitsky. I work with Dr. Gianna, and I'm also there. We have a couple of RNA-seq projects coming up, so this one is coming very in.
I'm Freddie. I work for Neptune, land science, and I'm very interested in RNA technical. It's very useful.
My name is Kabeto. I emphasize development and the staff. I'm interested in great language medicines.
I'm Catherine. I'm from the biology department. I'm not actually interested in RNA-seq. I work at Williamson's lab on general microbiome stuff, but I do need to know how to move from mutant to beacon. So.
I'm Kevin Keeley. I'm from the Army lab. We work a lot of ag options, and I'll be doing RNA-seq, not only in medicine, but also polysome profiling and RNA footprinting, which is related.
I'm Grace. I work at Dr. Morel Falvey's lab at Oak Ridge on microbe interactions and looking at transcription factors.
Yes, my name is Senator Hannick. I work with Dr. Carl Sampson. We're looking at LED lights and how that impact phasal flavor molecules, or turn variable genes, or triggered because of the lights that we use. So I think this is going to really.
I'm Amy Perkins. I work in the micro group at ORNL, and we're using RNA-seq data to understand how plants let in simians.
All right, and I think we've got one more.
I'm Ronnie Bickford from the Department of Animal Science, and I'll be using RNA sequencing to look at different gene expression between bird fits two different diets. I want my diet.
This is fun. We have a great mix of microbes, plants, and animals. We've got the whole tree of life represented. That's good. Yeah. Fortunately, RNA is RNA. So all of this will work pretty well on eukaryotes. I will give the disclaimer that we don't do a lot with prokaryotes in this class, but we can talk more about that for those of you who are interested in prokaryotes. And Fong, like I said, is doing 16S and looking at moving maybe into metagenomics, metatranscriptomics. So we're interested in at least talking about that. So with this, I will let Bobby take over and get everyone signed up for Beacon.
So I've got just a little bit of a presentation to give you guys, and then we'll get into setting up all the accounts. For this class, we've set up a bunch of student accounts for you guys to use for this class. Once you get done with this class, we'll want those student account fobs back. But if you want to get your own account, I'll show you how you can go ahead and get your own account created if that's what you want to do when you get through with this class. Everybody at UT can use our resources, so we're more than happy to have you come on. If you have some research you want to do, we really want to help you out with your computing, so we'll make sure we make it happen. With no further ado, pull my slides here. Everybody see those okay? Or do I need to make them bigger? Let me make them bigger. How's that? That's better. All right, so I work with the Joint Institute for Computational Sciences. They're out at Oak Ridge National Lab. And what the Joint Institute for Computational Sciences is, it's a joint institute between the University of Tennessee and Oak Ridge National Lab. So way back in the early 90s, they created this thing called the Joint Institute for Computational Sciences, which brought all the computational and scientists together at the lab with all the researchers out here at UT that had an interest in doing computational science. Now, I say computational science, does everybody know what I mean when I say computational science? If you do, great. If you don't, that's fine also. So I'll give you a quick definition. So it's kind of a merging of just traditional science fields with computer science. So there's several branches of science, several different ways of doing science. One of the ways that's been around with us for a long time is doing experimental science. So what is experimental science? It's mostly what you guys do. You do experiments and you learn about the world through your experimentations, right? After a while, it became pretty obvious that computers were growing and they're becoming more and more powerful and you can do more and more things with them. So a lot of scientists started thinking, why don't I, instead of going to a lab and always doing my experiments, start simulating the world on these computers and doing my experiments on computers instead? And that's how computational science really was born. So now instead of going to a lab all the time to do their experiments and mix up their chemicals and grow their plants and things like that, they'll do an experiment on a computer instead of doing it in a lab. And that's where computational really science came from. And because of that, they needed more and more bigger and faster computers. And then this thing called supercomputing came about. It was really computational science, but then they needed bigger and faster computers. Supercomputers were born from that. And supercomputers are sort of defined as any computer that's several hundred to several thousand times faster than your laptop is. So and that's where computational science comes in. That's what we at JIX do. We try and bring researchers from UT, researchers from the lab together, give them the resources they need to do their computational science and learn things we wouldn't have learned otherwise. Underneath that, underneath JIX, there's another group under there called NICS, the National Institute for Computational Science. NICS is really responsible for keeping the machines up and running and getting people on those machines and making them be able to use those machines effectively. And part of my job as group leader of user assistance is to bring users in, show them how to use the machines, help them make the best use out of those machines so they can get their science done. So that's what I do. I've been out the lab since about 2003. I worked for the DOE side out there for about 10 years. About 5 years ago, I came and started working for UT, still out at the lab though. Now we've got this new thing coming about called the ACF, the Advanced Computing Facility. So what happened with us back in 2007, the National Science Foundation gave us a big grant. We were able to put a machine online called Kraken. At the time, we made Kraken one of the world's fastest machines. It was the third fastest machine in the world. And it ran great, and we serviced the entire country. So we had this national leadership position in computational science for a long time. But there was a problem with NSF funding. It runs out. And when it runs out, now we had to decommission Kraken. Along that time, though, we'd been bringing a whole bunch of UT users on board because NSF allowed us to give some of that time to that big machine to UT users. Then they pulled Kraken away from us because they didn't fund it any longer, and it got old. It was 6 or 7 years old, and it was time to retire it. And we said, well, we still want to make sure we take care of our UT family. So what resources we still had around that we kind of purchased ourselves going around, we started making those available to UT users about a year or two ago. And then we started looking around and we realized, hey, you know, UT's got this other program called Newton. They're doing a lot of the similar things that we're doing. They're spending money to buy some resources to give to users. We're spending money to buy resources to give to users. We looked around a little bit further. Folks out in UT Medical Center out in Memphis, guess what they were doing? They were buying resources to give to their users to do stuff. We looked down at UT Chattanooga. UT Chattanooga was buying resources to give to their users. And so we said, well, let's think about combining all that together, because if everybody's doing the same thing, that's kind of redundant. Why don't we start bringing all these investments together and try and make a bigger center that we all can use? And that's kind of how this idea of the Advanced Computing Facility was born. The first step of that was, well, we said, let's start here at home. Let's start here at UTK in Knoxville. So we said, hey, doesn't it make sense to combine JIX and Newton together into one program? And some people said, yeah, that's a great idea. And other people said, well, let's think about it. And over the past year or so, they've been thinking about it, And eventually everybody kind of came to the idea, yeah, that does make sense. So we're about to start that combination where we're going to bring in the resources that were at one time Newton into the resources that were at one time JIC's resources. We're going to combine those two together, and now we're going to have the advanced computing facility. We've already been talking to our friends out in Memphis, and they're very hot on this idea. They think it's a great idea. They've already been sending us some resources and some money to try and get involved with it also. So we're going to see a lot of investment coming in from them as well. So we've talked to other people across the state too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with TDEC, which is the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation. They said that's a great idea. We want to be a part of that. We've reached out to other schools like the regional schools like ETSU and MTSU. They want to be a part of it. So we're starting to see a lot of people wanting to get involved with this and then build up from there. Now you guys are lucky. You're here. So we're going to go ahead and give you guys accounts if you want them so that you can get on this machine to do your research. So that's kind of the whole idea behind the ACF. Does anybody have any questions about it? Now you're asking about how to transfer from Newton over to Beacon. You're really going to be transferring into the ACF. So it's basically we're taking Newton like you see it, we're bringing it over and we're combining in Beacon, which is right now the machine that JIC still has. And so there's going to be some changes, and you'll see some of them today as we go through stuff, but it'll be fairly straightforward. And here's just kind of a brief overview of what it is. We'll get resources from state agencies, resources from the UT system, resources from all the UT campuses, build this into a thing called the ACF. So the first step is to take the resources we have that are still usable, put them all together, add a big file system on top of that. And then when we got all that together, then we can start expanding it as more and more people start to invest into it. Here's the hardware that you guys are going to have available to you this week. The first one is Beacon. It's our biggest supercomputer we currently have on the floor. It's a Cray Extreme supercomputer. It can do 210 teraflops a second. So it's a pretty hefty machine. For the work you're doing this week, you may not need the entire machine to do your work, but if you did, it would be there to use. Everybody know what a teraflops is? Anybody not know what a teraflops is? Okay, good. All right, so let's start small. A single flops, means a floating point operation per second. So imagine anything with a decimal point in it, 1.1 plus 1.1, that's a flop. If you do that in 1 second, you're doing a flops, a floating point operation per second. So if you do a kiloflops, how many can you do in a second? 1,000. If you do a megaflops, how many can you do in a second? 1,000,000. If you do a gigaflops, how many can you do? Billion. If you do teraflops, how many can you do? Trillion. So that tells you it's doing about 210 trillion calculations a second. That's its highest speed. All right, compare that to your laptop. Most laptops are somewhere in the gigaflops, somewhere around 50 gigaflops. So the machine's, roughly 100,000 times faster than that. So that kind of gives you some scale how these machines. What's that?
Max a little faster.
Yes. Tiny bit, a little bit. Yeah, it's a little faster. Now, there are other machines out there that we have at the lab. Now, some of them are run by DOE, some of them are run by NSF, some of them are run by some other agencies like NOAA. Right now, the fastest machine out there is a machine called Titan, and it's currently doing 27 petaflops. So what comes after teraflops? So that's a trillion. What comes after a trillion? A quadrillion. So it's doing 27 quadrillion instructions per second. That's currently the third fastest computer in the world. Now that bums me out a little bit because 2 or 3 years ago when it first came out, it was the world's fastest supercomputer. So I like to brag about that all the time. In fact, in the afternoons, I'd often go in the computer room and just touch it and call up all my nerd buddies and go, hey, guess what I'm doing? I did that for a few days in a row, and they stopped answering my calls. I don't know why, but they did. Another machine you're going to have access to is this machine you see down here in the lower corner. It's called a Kai. It's just a small server that we've got for people to log in and look at their files and stuff. So you'll be able to get into either one of those machines you need to throughout this week. For some of your Linux stuff, it might make sense just to be on this little smaller login server instead of the big machine, but you got access to either one of them. And my slide died. This is an incredible diagram that showed all kinds of detailed information, but apparently when PDF was reading it, it didn't pick it all up. Basically, Beacon is a bunch of nodes together, and there's different kinds of nodes. So there's some login nodes, and those nodes are the ones you're going to be logging into, be looking at your files, editing your files, maybe compiling your programs. On top of that, then there are other nodes that are I/O nodes. Those I/O nodes handle your files back and forth. And then the rest of Beacon, the most of it, is compute nodes where you're actually going to do the computation on those nodes. So if this diagram showed up like it was supposed to, One of those boxes up in the corner said login, another one said IO nodes, and the rest of them were compute nodes. So for this class, we've also reserved you guys 4 of those compute nodes to get through this class. It's going to be for your exclusive use for this week. All right, so let's talk about getting your account set up. The way we do our accounts out there is we'll give you a username, or we'll give you a student account username. We do what is known as two-factor authentication. So instead of just using a username and password, we're going to use a username, or we're going to give you what's known as a secure ID token. And that is called two-factor authentication because you got to know a PIN number, and you also have to have this RSA token. Anybody ever used these RSA tokens before? Everybody seen them? So that's what we're going to give you today. If you want, I don't know the best way to hand these out. I've got a bunch of them. We could pass these around, and you could take one, and that probably works out best. So they've just got a little envelope on them, and on the very front is going to be your username. It's going to be STD001, STD002, STD whatever. So there's you. Take one and pass it. Thank you. Does everybody have a laptop? Yep. So one of the first things you're going to have to do to activate your account is go to this website you see up here. It'll take you to a form, and you'll just need to fill that form out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a browser and go to that web page, and you can see what it looks like. Yep, sure will. So here's where you're going to go. It's portal.nix.utk.edu/class/70/student. You put in your first name and your last name and your email. Your username is going to be whatever's on front of the envelope you just received. So STD, whatever. It's in lowercase. I know on those envelopes it's uppercase, but really it's lowercase. And then please select your citizenship and click submit. And then they'll activate those student accounts.
After you go in, there's a associated credential.
What's up?
So after you submit, someone says associate UT credential. You do that or not? These are just,
Since these are just student accounts, I wouldn't worry with it right now.
So where do we get username from?
I'm sorry?
Where do you get username from?
From your envelope?
Right.
Yep. Okay. It's lowercase. I know they're uppercase on these, but they're lowercase. We mistyped them when we put them in there. So in this case, you know, I'd go in and I put in my name. I put in my email. I put in my username. In this case, I'm going to do STD0027. And I got to select my citizenship. And for now, you do get this page that says you can associate your UT credential. For now, don't worry about that. Later on, when you get your own real account, you would have an opportunity to do that. That way, make it a little bit easier to sign into the portal later on. All right, once you've done that, the next step we've got to do is we've got to set up your new PIN. And to do that, let me pull up a terminal. What you want to do is SSH, and you want to use that new username you just have. So STD in my case is 0027. Yours is something else. And that's at nix.utk.edu. In a moment, it'll come up and ask for a passcode. In a moment. I messed up. Sorry. Login dot. Sorry, I missed a word. Login dot. Now it may come up and say the authenticity of this host is blah, 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 blah. Just say yes. This is the passcode right now, just those 6 digits. When you punch in those 6 digits that are shown on this, you should get a prompt that says, are you ready to set up a new PIN? You answer yes. And now it wants 4 to 8 alphanumerical characters, which means just use some digits. Make up your own 4 to 8 digits. Make sure it's something you can remember.
Okay, if you aren't to this step yet, throw parentheses. Anybody who hasn't gotten to this point?
Everybody, okay, 1,
Okay.
dos,
3, okay.
3.
Hold on.
Freeze. Has everybody gotten through the web page piece?
We're still working on the web page
Okay.
here.
Okay.
You have an internal server error, which I don't know.
I just don't know why this number always change. Because when I have one, it changes to another one.
It changes every 30 seconds.
Yeah. That's like super secure, right?
It's secure.
So
Nobody knows your password.
So I have to input it.
What's that?
So it says like keep asking enter the passcode. So I just keep using it.
Did it ask passcode again?
Yeah, it's asking again. I don't know if I don't tap.
You may have just like that. Try it again.
Oh, I can't use it.
Okay, perfect. I think he said to not worry, no associating credentials right now.
Not right
About
now,
that.
not right now.
So the next thing to do is do as long as don't worry about it. It just hit finish. I think we can just get back to that.
Oh, it still says later. Oh.
So I technically, unless you're right, in your passcode that you need, even though they're different.
The first one is yours, the second one is this one.
So I added it.
Okay, not the reverse one.
So I put my. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. We're gonna get to that eventually. We're not there yet.
That's because we entered.
Probably.
And the SSH is taking a while.
No, we're not.
Oh, it's not working.
Yeah, because I probably didn't enter, I just entered my number. And probably,
So,
else
oh, no.
if you're on AG Roam, it's refusing connection. Switch to UT open. AG Roam is
I am on YouTube.
UTF is not impressive
So what's probably just happened is that a bunch of failed attempts just hit it.
Yes.
And it got blocked.
Yes.
Give it about 5. Sometimes during classes, a bunch of people fail at the same time. It's a security protocol. Sorry, you can't hack us. Stop hacking us. So I told them we're doing this class and we said they're going to change that number. Usually at 20 failed attempts, it blocks us. SWAT is not. What's that? SWAT is not.
So
I
did you
can't,
get to the
I
point
cannot
where you
deny
were
nor,
able
I can neither deny nor verify that.
Yeah, it's
We're not acting on that.
you mean SSH? Oh, portal.
All your bases belong to us.
Yeah, .utk. .edu
So we'll give it maybe 5 or 10
class.
minutes. And then, how many people were successful?
Student.
One, yes, one successful. Yeah. Good there. What did you do?
Yeah.
Okay, we can get back and do that. So if we go get rid of accounts.login.
First, you guys remember the next passcode after you change your PIN.
Right up to. No, class. /student.
All right, now, put in your PIN first.
No,
And now let me see.
Is it active for, you already put in the password?
Fill in the
So then you have to put in yours and then
username.
like,
I did.
Lower.
Oh,
Yeah.
before?
Oh, just one big one.
yeah.
Your passcode then becomes the whole thing. All right, if you were successfully able to set your PIN, next time it asks for passcode, they want your PIN followed immediately by the passcode.
Okay.
Don't hit enter, PIN, passcode, then enter. Okay? Try that now and see if that works.
Then, oh, wait.
Yeah, you go with the token.
I wonder what the security.
You're logged in. You're logged in.
No, right? You're taking good notes. So don't put all this right.
I did that.
Okay. Yeah, one got logged in. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wherever your citizenship is. Wherever,
So once the permission was made, I go back to.
Go back to the SSH. But if you got your PIN set, now it's going to be PIN followed immediately by the passcode.
I can do that now without SSH.
You got SSH back to login.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Now hit finish. Okay, now we need to go find the terminal. You know how to get
This is RSH secure ID.
like a command line terminal.
So, yeah.
And go to this
Some
little
people
smiley
jump off.
face.
But the actual technical name is RSA secure ID.
I thought it was the name of the company.
Yeah, RSA is the name of the company. This project
Your own
is
like
secure
software
ID.
application.
So how does the system know when password everybody has the same?
And then you just be
You switch every 30 seconds.
No.
There's an internal server that's running something.
And
All
then-
these numbers. So I
So
can-
it's a country.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
it's
Now you
synchronic.
can try this part where you do SSH.
Passcode?
They call this two-factor authentication because it's two factors. A factor is something you know, something you are, or something you have. So in this case, the something you have is this thing. The something you know is the pin you just drew. So you got another pin in your head. Don't share that with anybody. Of course, most of you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then this is something you have. That way, if somebody steals this, they can't use this to log in. Unless they put a gun in your head and say, tell me what your pin is. In that case, I'd recommend you tell me what your pin is.
And hold on, I think,
It's not worth it. You're done.
are we just letting the SSH terminal hang?
I'm
Or do you
sorry.
want us to cancel the SSH?
Is it good? Is it good?
And there's still, we got operation timed out.
Okay, let me come up with that.
It's supposed to be the red.
Red sticky, I know. These are really useful.
They are.
Hey, if you actually logged in, can you put your green sticky out? That'll make it a little easier too.
Yeah, anybody can have an actual like.
If you actually got logged in.
It's just
We're
the
right
name,
now.
we said operation timed out. Okay, did you set your,
Yeah, I did.
and you have your pin and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I take my pen.
Your pin and then the 6 digits.
I
Yeah.
do the other way around.
Okay, pin first, 6 digits. And if you already typed it in, that'd be nice. So I'm gonna have to go and reset it. Okay. You're in. Are you in? Yes. You're in.
4. Okay. No, make it up. You're making it up. Come up with something. Are you gonna remember that number? Are you gonna remember that?
Okay, so this is just mixed how you can get it.
Put in 4 digits, you're gonna remember. What 4 digits you gonna remember?
2, 1, 0, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3.
You gotta pick 4. Gotta have 4 numbers. 2, 1, 3, what? 2, 1, 3, 3. I think 2, 1, 3, 3. 2, 1, 3, 3. Now, let's see if you guys go. Re-enter. Oh, didn't I? Press enter. Enter it in.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so Grace is doing the same thing. You can do the same thing, it's just mixed by UPK.
All right, now you're back. Put in your pen first.
My
And then
best is so long.
put in your pen. 2, 1, 3, 3. There's those 6 digits. 7, 3, 0.
Mixed by UPK. No longer. There you go.
It looks like this was missing. All right, put in your pen. First.
Did yours essentially work, Grace? It did not. What did it say? It just didn't do anything.
Okay.
Put your pen first.
Do I need to clarify any of these slides?
I just hit finish. I want to run to finish, but I don't know if that helps anything.
All right. 2, 1, 3, 3. Don't hit enter. Put in those 6 digits. 2. Now hit enter. Log in.
You're on. Okay, so it's still got 2 not. It's just hanging. Oh, you're not either.
Where you at?
Just to make sure.
Yeah, we're getting. I think it's so many.
So what network are you on right now? Are you on the UT Open or are you on?
Did you see that?
UT Open. Try to hit your own too.
Can you try with beacons? Like beacon that mix that you see?
Get your whole address so the so you can see that.
You can up arrow and it'll give you your previous statement, then you can just edit it. Use the right, the left arrow. Yeah,
All right, now let's do this.
Try that. Okay, yes, so type yes. Okay, so now you have to enter passcode, yeah, enter that 7 digits. Hey Bobby, when it says enter passcode, does it want you to enter your new passcode or that?
So, did you get a PIN set up?
Not yet.
Not yet. Just the 6 digits right now.
Okay, just those 6 digits.
And some of these may have got locked, so I'll have to take a look and say. Because, you know, I think you might be locked, so maybe we'll check yours. Maybe you're not.
050.
We did set it. Okay. Hit Control C out of that. Right out of that. Control C.
Wow,
Go
weird.
to Control.
Okay, let's try it.
Now try it again.
Try the.
Just hit the up arrow.
Now try with your PIN first. And then now you gotta put that in right after the PIN. Hit Control C again. Type your PIN. Don't hit enter. Now punch that in.
Is this where you just
Now you can.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No, how do you
Wait for it to change. Did that change?
Something like this.
Just type it in.
So Grace said she was able to get
Now, anytime you ask your passcode now, it's pin, all the rest of the digits. So
Every time.
every time it says passcode now, not you go to pin. Every time it says passcode, it's pin and then the 6 digits.
Okay, you're right there.
Okay. It's because we haven't done this pin yet. He's not listening.
I just see the one.
Okay, so we
Where
had
we at
him try, he couldn't get into nix.utka.edu, so we tried nix.utka.edu. Can you set up a pin on? It's asking for passcode.
So passcode, if you haven't set your pin, it's just going to be the 6 digits. That's it.
He keeps typing it.
There might be something. It might be locked. The file might be locked out, so I have to pull up the server and do that. Anybody else who's not been able to log in yet? Everybody is logged in. You're the only one, really? Out of this whole crowd of people. You're it. Wow.
It's not you.
It is not you. It's us. Really, it's not you. It's us. Don't worry about all them. They're just gifted. Don't worry. It's fine.
No, everybody has plenty of problems.
So this is the smoothest I've ever seen a class this big go. So you guys are fantastic. Everybody else, I'll get you there.
Nobody log out. Stay logged
Yes, stay where you're at. Don't move. Don't move.
Should we get your name?
I know.
Don't breathe. Don't breathe.
We'll spend an hour setting up, and then we'll finally get.
Just remember, from now on, anytime it asks for passcode, it's your PIN, immediately followed by those 6 digits shown on the file. Resist the urge to type PIN, enter. Don't do that. No. If you do, it's fine. We'll fix it.
It also means you can never forget your key fob at home. Put it on your keychain, because I do that a lot.
Now, we do this for security because of just the password. People like to write their passwords down and stuff. And we've not been hacked since we're supposed to use RSA. We're looking at other options too to move forward with ACF. So we're not always having to give out these fobs for people who that's a pretty common thing to do. We're thinking about using something called Duo, where you're going to log in, you put in your username, you put in a password, and you get a text message on your cell phone saying, "Are you really logging in, yes or no?" You say yes. And then that's the 2-factor. Then you get your cell phone. And then there's people go, "Well, what if I don't have a cell phone?" I'm like,
Your computer goes to sleep. Does it kick you out?
it depends on the computer. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. At this point, you guys that were able to effectively log in and get there, you won't have any problem logging in. Just SSH back in. Just remember PIN immediately followed by the passcode that's on the and you just log back. It's no big deal.
Yeah, so nix.utk.edu is a different computer. It's like its own server versus the whole beacon system. So, so there's lots of ways to log in. If you SSH to nix.utk.edu, it's just one server. You can run small, like while we're learning Linux, that's fine. But if you want to actually get on Beacon and use Beacon's resources, you need to SSH to beacon.nix.utk.edu. So they are two different things.
Yes, right now everybody's logged into login, which is that small little server I had up on my slideshow. It has your home directories and has all your files that you have in your home directories. And your home directory is shared across all Nix resources. So if you put any changes in login in your home directory, those changes are automatically going to show up in all the other machines because it's shared amongst all the machines. So we have that login server for times when other machines are down and people just want to get to their files to do something. They still have some place to go. So if you're taking Beacon down because of power or maintenance or something like that.
If you know you'll be using Beacon for your research, you can also get on the Nix website and sign up for the Beacon mailing list, which is super helpful because they'll tell you when it's going down for maintenance, anything that's going on. If there's trainings or other opportunities, those would probably
I currently have plugged in like 15 different servers.
So we have, this is a very, very
How much more time we
long
got?
class. Oh, we got plenty of time. If you guys want to take a bathroom break or grab a drink of water or run across the street and grab a cup of coffee, let's take a 5 to 10 minute break. We'll get everybody logged in and then we'll start our Linux review. If you are a Linux guru and you're here solely for the RNA-seq part, feel free to leave. I'm not gonna make you stay here and listen to me teach you LS. This is like something that you're very, very familiar with. And if you're registered for the class, you won't be able to email me anything. But just email me like your student ID or something. Well, I should have your login. So anyway, I'm not, if you are really familiar with Linux, you don't have to hang around. All right, let's regroup at like 10:05.
Slowly logging in. Let's do this.
We're gonna start
What's the relationship with the chicken and because I'm using Newton right now. It seems like the screen is totally different, like TPS versus SGE.
Yeah, so it's a different scheduling system. It's not super different. It will look slightly familiar, but it's called Torque. It's and I can show you if you Google Torque adaptive computing. It's Torque is the resource manager. So Newton, like as the hardware is absorbed into the new ACF, it will no longer have SGE. It will all be Torque. But if you go to, I think I actually have it bookmarked because I've been using it a lot, the Torque manual. There's this whole information about how to do request resources, and it looks surprisingly similar to SGE. A lot of it's very similar.
Yeah, I used PBS before. I just want to know which is better, which resource is better. Because for Newton, if you don't have like write a grant proposal with them, they only give you like 16 cores. It's not much faster. Like what's the default apply I can get from Beacon?
So you do not want to keep putting Newton on a grant proposal because Newton's going away.
Okay.
Newton will no longer be in existence in about 6 months.
Okay.
So they're going to start taking it down on July 1st.
Okay.
And then probably by October, November, there will be virtually no computers left on Newton.
Okay.
So you have to move to ACF. You don't really have a choice, which is ACF's going to be bigger and it's going to have a lot more computers. It's going to have a lot more storage. So this could be a good thing, right? But it does mean you have to move your software over and you have to move your data over. And they're going to help you with that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a lot of stuff saved on Newton, so they will transfer.
You'll need to transfer it over. But then as far as buying in for resources, I think that's a Bobby question. They're going to let you buy priority.
Okay.
So you can run, so like I don't know, have you paid into Newton right now or are you opportunistic?
I'm just using like a normal user. Like,
me too, okay.
Okay,
and Newton has a lot of room, right? Like Newton's a pretty empty HPC, to be honest with you. Like it's probably only 20% utilized.
Right.
So when you run a job on Newton, it runs.
Okay.
New ACF, I don't know if it will be busier or if it will be just as not busy. So
because Newton have several like Sigma rows and something.
So Sigma's moving over
in
August or September
to
become part of Beacon ACF. And then I don't know if Row is anything more than 3 years old isn't moving over.
I just want to know if we have new resources, like the normal user will get larger, like a default more cores or more RAM.
So the new nodes on ACF, we can go ask Bobby, but I think they're going to be like 24 core or 32 core with 256 gigs of RAM. So they're going to be pretty beefy. Like they're going to be good. And when you request a job, you get that whole node.
Because sometimes they only let you run the job for 48 hours or 96 hours, and then after that they will terminate.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there are time limit. Well, we should ask Bobby. How are you?
I'm good. So one of the reps,
Oh, yeah.
sure about that. And I'll email you today with a paper.
Yeah.
Sure. Just give me something that you think would be good. That'd be great. I mean, I don't really anything, especially like the GSC that I use before.
I was here last summer. I've been working on it for a year.
Okay.
You know how different it is from in terms of something. But I think, yeah, the first time I went to speak, questions and see if you're really like, but I can listen to things
Monster just goes big
Monster is one paragraph. Monster is working about Monster is one paragraph, but you can only write 24 hours for that monster and the rest of the much less.
Yeah, you must say that was the first time on a job.
right now.
just to make sure I don't.
That's another question of those of different years.
Right.
Jobs, possibly. We also want to be able to have people with longer jobs. 48-hour jobs. We've also done a couple of 70-hour jobs. Start frowning more than that because things keep going down with the job crashes. Hey, what's one quick you start checking?
We run, that's why our one of the reasons we have assemblies. I don't know if you're doing some things. We have assemblies.
I mean, because I try to use some, you have to have large RAM, like you have to use monsters, right?
Well, that's why I bought a high quality RAM server, the 44. It's hard to use. Yes, it's hard for she doesn't take less knowledge. Sounds like these got some servers. Yeah, either one of them really good. It's not very complicated. It's not as good as Monster. It's not as good.
Yeah, sometimes you take a long time on Monster. I try to buy some more space and it's kind of finished. Waiting 24 hours, like you have to watch this take forever.
Yeah, we've had yeah, and in that case, I feel like, I don't know, okay, probably. So, like, he's got you.
Yeah, they were tough monsters. Either you buy them or
to buy a monster room, and we can. Yeah. So I'm thinking about if there's enough people doing a cemetery if we all want to go in together. Have it available. I mean, we can really work fine.
I know, yeah, I think
That's right. Yes. All right, good. Everybody want to? Cool, yeah, that's good. That's great.
I think that should be it. All right, is everybody back? Are we still missing anybody? If you're not here, raise your hand. Okay. All right, so okay, they've already left because they already know all this. Fine, don't need it. All right, so if we would really like to get these fobs back at the end of the week, so I'm going to try and be here on Friday to collect them up. If I can't be, please just give them Dr. Stanton. She can get it back to me whenever. But we would like to get them back because we use them for other classes too. So we would like to get these back, and they are kind of expensive. They're about 40 or 50 bucks each. So they're not take-home gifts. They're not. And And my grandmother on her deathbed willed all these to me, so I'm very partial to them. Make sure I get them back, please.
They expire, right?
They do expire, but those expire like in 19, I think. So we check flea markets too. So if you're trying to make a little sideline business, we'll know. I know. I can see. I can tell.
Specifically, all of them?
I can neither deny nor verify these claims. All right. When you get done, what we've done and we will continue to do is that anybody who is at UTK and anybody that would like to get an account on our machines, you're more than welcome to. What we have is a campus-wide access project that lets anybody at UT, staff, faculty, students, get an account on these machines. Now, it's known as an opportunistic project, and by opportunistic, we mean you get put in backfill mode. So people who have paid and invested into Newton get priority access, or into ACF, get priority access on the ACF. Everybody else gets put in the bigger project that is the opportunistic account, meaning that if the machine is quiet and nobody with priority is running and taking up the machine, your jobs can start going through. And a lot of people do a lot of research just sitting there letting their jobs sit there for a day or two, and then it starts going through when the machine kind of slows down and nobody's running on it. So to say that you're putting the bottom barrel doesn't mean you're not going to get to run. It just means that you're opportunistically waiting for some time or some space on the machine to open up, and then you jump into that space. Okay. So if you want to get invested in that, come over here on our homepage, which is nix.utk.edu. That takes you to our website. And there's all kinds of documentation stuff on there you might look. We're in the process of updating all of our documentation. So go ahead and look at it right now if you want. Just remember, it'll be changing through the summer and into the fall as we bring the ACF into things. Right now, if you're interested in what's going on with the ACF, you can go to the computing tab, and there's a link there for ACF, which will take you to some preliminary documentation with the ACF. And you'll notice there's a bunch of red in progresses on it right now, because that's stuff that we're working on, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet. But one thing you might want to look at is the system overview. Right now, this is what ACF is going to be when we get it all put together. It's going to be Beacon, it's going to be Row, it's going to be Sigma, it's going to be Monster, and that kind of gives you what nodes are available or will be available when we get ready later on this summer. Another thing you might want to take a look at would be the initial timeline. I need to update this. Some changes have happened, but you can kind of get a feel from when things are going to happen. So you can see that Beacon will become part of the ACF right now, moving in July. We'll be bringing Monster on in July. We've just got in a new big file system that came in last month, and we'll get it online in June. So that's one of the changes I need to make, is when that'll go online. And then we're going to start migrating users from Newton, and that's already been pushed forward a little bit. So it's going to be later July, 1st of August. So I need to push that forward a little bit. And then we bring on Row and Sigma, and then the Newton storage also. That's been pushed forward probably till September because of all the other things that are going on. Somewhere in here, we're going to have somewhere probably in September timeframe, maybe 1st of October timeframe, we're going to have a pretty good training session set up for folks to start understanding how to use the ACF. By that time, it should all be kind of in place, and we should have a pretty good idea how to train on it. Again, this one is subject to change quite a bit. It needs to change right now, and I'll be working on that over the next few days. If you decide that you like to get an account and start running on Beacon right now, there's a link across the top called Request an Account. You go in there, you put in your username if you're a new user. If you're an existing user, if you've already been computing with us and you've got a Nix username or a Jix username, you can put that in there. Once you put in that name, then you have to go in and fill out a brief form. And I can't take it all the way through because I've already tested it many times. You just fill out your name, address, that kind of information. You go to the next page. What you're looking for on the next page will ask you what project you want to be associated with. You want to be associated with the UT Campus project for your faculty, staff, and students. The number is 0241. So it's UT-10-0241. That's the campus access project. That's the opportunistic project that anybody can have access to. Once you've got access to that, you can get on the computer just like anybody else. You'll be in opportunistic mode, meaning you got to wait till the machine's not being used by somebody with higher priority, which happens enough to where you can get some computing done. All right, sir.
If I have a new account, do I have to
we're in the middle of figuring out what we're going to do about the Newton to ACF migrations. We're going to keep you informed as we're moving across through the summer. We are going to, you know, if you've got data, we're going to give a window where you move your data from Newton over to ACF. What we're going to do about accounts, we're not quite sure yet. How much we can migrate or how much we may have to ask you to go fill out another form or something. We don't know yet. We're working through those details, and we're going to try and keep people updated as we go. I wish I had all the answers, but we're right in the middle of it right now, and I don't have all the answers yet. I can make some stuff up, but it may not be accurate for everyone. So what we're thinking right now is we're probably going to set it up and have like a feature in the scheduler to say, I want to run on Sigma, so I do like a -L feature equals Sigma, and I would run on Sigma. Eventually what we're going to do is get the scheduler set up to where you can run across all of it at one time if you wanted to. That's our goal, is to put all this together into one unified system under the same network fabric, using the same file system. So then eventually we're going to transition away from having like these separate, this is the beacon partition, this is the Sigma partition, this is the row partition. You're just on the ACF. We haven't come up with a name for what that ACF machine is going to be yet. Some people have said Einstein, just because Newton and Einstein are like buddies or whatever. Right. So we haven't got a name for it yet. That's where we are in the planning stages right now. Any other questions I can answer for you guys? For on the opportunistic, yeah, there is a project set up. It is the UT-10-0241, and you can just get on it. Yes. Hi.
So I don't want to teach something correctly. If they do get an account and they want to put data, what's the policy on Homes directory versus the Medusa storage?
So
versus what happens to your data long term? Is it backed up?
So right now, what we have available, we have an NFS. I always get that screwed up. I say NSF instead of NFS. We have an NFS area where our home directories go. Default, you get 2 GB of home directory space. Right? And for the opportunistic account, that's probably all you're going to get. You could request more, but likely we'd want you to do an actual real project instead of just being plugged into the everybody account. You also get space to our Lustre file system. Right now, that space is known as Medusa, and it's a 1.3 petabyte file space. We use it primarily for Scratch, and we can also set up project directories for projects, but we don't have one set up for the opportunistic account. Right? So opportunistic is you can get on and compute, and you can have some home space area, and you can use the Scratch space. Now, the Scratch space doesn't have a quota on it, so you can put as much data in there as you want to. It is not backed up, and if the system gets really full, we may have to purge some of the data. So if you've not used your data in 30 days, it's subject to be purged. Now we'll try and contact you if it's a lot of data, but if it's just some little data, and the system gets full, if it gets close to 85 or 90% full, it starts impacting everybody. So sometimes the admins have to go in and drastically reduce the space quick, and they go out and they look at all the stuff that hadn't been touched in 30 days, and they start purging that space. Project directories, we try not to purge. We let them sit there. Backup, we don't have a super good backup solution yet. And we're looking at different ways of doing that. We're thinking about this new system that's coming in, this new file system, which is going to be 3 petabytes, which is more than twice as big as what we currently have. Plus, we're going to take over the storage that was in Newton. And if we combine all that together, then maybe we partition some of it into home areas, partition some of it into Scratch space, some of it into project space, and then some of it into backup space. So right now, folks that are coming, we say, make sure you've got your own backup somewhere, because we don't today have any ability to back it up effectively. Right now, the Medusa file system is about 60% full, so that's almost 3/4 of a petabyte, and it's hard to back up 3/4 of a petabyte. Primarily, it's been used to Scratch too. So Scratch is your temporary space. We just kind of put files temporarily while you're running on them. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to back up a bunch of Scratch space necessarily. It does make sense to back up the project directories. We just don't have a real good solution for that right now. But we're in the process of figuring that out. Again, we're in the middle of all this, so these are questions that we're trying to answer, and we'll have an answer. We're planning to have an answer by the fall semester.
So we're going to learn secure copy in this class, so you'll be able to have your own external hard drive, potentially, to keep your raw data. Maybe once you're done with analysis, you can also transfer your final files. Depending on how much space you have, you may not want all the intermediate files because they tend to get the right thing. But I would keep a local backup just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, at this point, particularly with data sets smaller, like you guys are working with right now, it's fairly easy to keep your own backups. And when you start getting into terabytes and terabytes and terabytes, we realize that, yeah, there is a big need for being able to archive that data. And we have some solutions in place. And as the ACF grows, that's absolutely in our plan to make sure that we have, they don't like to call it archive storage anymore, they like to call it nearline storage, but it's still archive storage. But we have plans in place that if we get enough funding in, that we'll be able to put in some archive/nearline fund storage to be able to do backups for folks. Because we understand that that's a problem. We want to solve that problem. All it needs is time and money. How much money you guys got? Hello? 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 All right. So everybody's connected now, right? Now that you're connected, you can now log into login.nix.utk.edu, which is where you want to set up your pins. You can also now go to beacon.nix.utk.edu. If during this week, login.nix.utk.edu is fine for getting your home directories. You can't really run your applications there. Can't really compile your code there. It's just a small little box. It's only got 2 cores on it, but it'd be fine to log in and do some of the Linux stuff that you're playing around with. Beacon, it's got several login nodes. It's actually got 3 login nodes. Again, you can log in there. You can do all your Linux work you'd be working on, edit your files and things like that, compile your codes, anything like that. If you want to really run any applications, you don't want to run them on the login nodes because that can really bog down the login nodes. And when you bog down a login node, that means people can't log in and they start having problems. And then you get calls from us saying, hey, stop what you're doing, please. Because we also have compute nodes on Beacon, and that's where you want to go to run any jobs that you're running. So we've set it up this week where you can, we've got 4 nodes, 4 of those compute nodes have now been reserved for you guys. And once you get on to Beacon, so you log into Beacon first, and then you can start an interactive job. And an interactive job just takes part of the compute nodes and it lets you run interactively. Interactively means you're sitting there typing your commands. So when you log in, you're interactive. When you log into login, you're interactive. When you log into Beacon, you're interactive. Normally what you do with the compute nodes is do batch jobs, meaning that you throw your job over in the scheduler batches that up and runs it with a bunch of other applications, and you just kind of sit around waiting for an email telling you your job is done. You can also run interactively, which means we're using some of the compute nodes for you to get an interactive prompt back so you can do your work on it. So we set up 4 of those, you guys, and to access that, this is the command line you're going to use. You would say qsub, that's at capital I. Qsub space dash capital I space dash L. That's a little L. The font wasn't real good for this command line. Wall time equals an hour. You're going to use on one node, and you're going to use shared access, which means you folks can use those 4 nodes. And you can share those 4 nodes.
Does it matter if the nodes equals 1? Yes.
You could put nodes up to nodes equals 4 if you wanted to, but that means.
No, we don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to update. So this is incorrect on our homepage of the website, and I'll update it. This is the
This is, we set this up, this shared access up just for you guys in this class. So that's actually a new feature. We don't have any documented on our website. So that's a new feature for this class.
So the login of the mix and the Beacon will be saved.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, you would say std001 at login dot whatever, std003 at Beacon. And once you're on Beacon, you can run this command, which would then create an interactive job on those nodes, on those compute nodes, and give you a prompt back. So then you could be working on that interactive node. And that's where you can run any of these applications or things like that.
So batch job submissions is not something we're going to talk about a lot in this class. I talk about it a lot more in my full 3-hour class, which will be taught next fall. I'll try to give you some examples at the end of the class, though, for moving forward. It's really powerful because that's the way, right now we'll just be running like 1 file at a time. Eventually you can say like, I want to do this operation and I want to do it on 100 files. So if you have 100 RNA-seq samples, like trim them all, and then you walk away and go have coffee and you come back 3 hours later, and all these computers have done your bidding. It's a very powerful feeling. So we'll work on how to get that done for the end of the course.
So,
the real power of these systems.
You know, both for this class and moving forward, the best way to get a hold of us is help@nix.utk.edu. Now, for this class, I'm going to try and be here several days. I need to look at my schedule, see how many I can be here. So if I'm here, absolutely come to me if you need any help. If I'm not here, you can send a ticket in to help@nix.utk.edu. And you can also go to our website, nix.utk.edu, to get some information as well. Now, once you're out of this class, those two things still apply. If you need help, help@nix.utk.edu and our website. You guys have any questions I can answer or make up an answer for? I think my time is done. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, do I have any reds? Any reds out there? No reds? No reds.
Are you sticking around for a while?
I'll stick around at 1:30 as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Jim Brosnan just joined us. He's from Plant Sciences, and he's working on getting logged in. So if you want me to help them figure that out, yeah.
So we do have a red flag.
We do. Well, yeah, just a little behind.
Yes.
Okay, so if you go to the Linux review, we have set up everything that I'm going to say. Every command I'm going to type is here. So if you get lost, do not fear. Red sticky it. We will come help you. But also, if there's something that you're not super clear on and you want to revisit later, it'll be here for you to look at. I'm going to make this really big so everyone can see it. If you get frustrated with all the stuff on your screen and you just need a clear blank canvas, you can just type clear and all the stuff will go away. Okay, so we're going to start out with an SSH. You're going to use your student IDs instead of mstaten1 because you don't know my PIN. And then beacon.nix.utk.edu. And that's going to pop us onto, everyone's going to end up on a login server for Beacon. And I have to actually, then this is key before you hit enter. Make sure you have your Bob in front of you. If it asks you authenticity, you can say, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a real computer. I got this from a reputable source. And then your PIN number and your key fob number. Fingers crossed. Okay. Now, if you're already SSH'd in and you didn't have to do that, fantastic. So this is the command line interface. We keep mentioning it, but I haven't really explained it very well. This was really a very traditional, this was the original way of interacting with the computer before we had our nice visual operating systems with things that you could point and click and use a mouse. That was not the original way that things worked. So this is kind of harkening back to the old way of doing things, but as I mentioned earlier, it's very powerful. It gives you a lot more control over how the computer is running, how software is running, and how to talk to other computers. So it's still totally worth learning. So you'll sometimes see CLI, command line interface, as opposed to GUI, graphical user interface. So those would be the two traditional ways of thinking about interfacing with a computer. On our wiki, oh, I think I had Chrome open. So anywhere I have a gray box, it doesn't show up too well in the slides, but if you're looking at it, that's things that I'm typing into the command line versus all this other black and white text is things I'm probably gonna tell you. And then sometimes there'll also be little gray boxes with paths in them. So when you're typing a command, let's take this as an example, cd space /nix/d/home/username. So how do we break that down? The command itself is cd. cd stands for change directory. There's a lot of shorthands. That's why you have a cheat sheet. We gave you a cheat sheet because it gets a little overwhelming to memorize all these little shorthands. but they become second nature after you use them for a little while. And as scientists, I'm sure you're all used to learning archaic Latin taxonomic names and lots of acronyms. So this will probably be familiar. So the basic command is cd, and then it takes an argument. So an argument is something else that comes next on the command line that gives more information to your command. And it can be called an option, it can be called a flag, it can be called a switch if it has this little dash in front of it. So in this case, the argument was just all by itself, but sometimes we also modify our commands with a flag, a switch, or an option. So a dash, and then some letters. Sometimes there's single letters, sometimes there's multiple letters. So this would be the ls command, and the flags would be L and H. You can also give flags with full words. Oftentimes, full word flags have 2 dashes. So dash dash help would be up here. This is the dash L means give me the listing in a very long verbose form. The dash H means give me the help as well, I think. I don't know what that does. We can check on the command line. And here you've spelled it out fully, dash dash help. So I'll show you where to find a lot more information about how each command works and how you can modify that command and how you can pass more information to that command. But I just want you to realize there's usually like one word that you type at the beginning, the command, and then there's like you modify it and give that command more information by typing more things on the command line. So the most important thing to learn is file system navigation. And this course has been by far the most challenging thing for new students to learn. So it's similar to your laptop. Files are living in directories or folders, except the first of the top directory is called root, so the root of the file system, and it's specified by a single /. All other // indicate a relationship between a parent directory and a child directory. So let's go back up here. So I would tell you this is a path to a place on the NICS file system. We have a folder called NICS. That slash basically is delineating one folder from the next. Inside of that folder is a folder called D. Inside of that folder is a folder called home. And inside of that folder is a folder called username. In this case, there's a different folder created for each and every one of us. So let me open the file system. So on a Mac, we would be used to looking at this like, what would have, okay. Our desktop is, I don't have a lot of folders. Okay, so under documents, documents is a folder. Inside of documents, there's another folder called Zoom. Inside of Zoom, there's another folder called 2017-06-12. And inside that, there's some files. So I was able to click through, digging deeper into the directory structure. The way we specify that on the command line is by typing out each of those folder names and separating them with a slash. Does that make sense? Okay. It gets a little more complicated, of course. Well, let's go through an absolute path example. We have our root directory, so a directory can have, or folder can have more than one thing in it, right? So we have /nic, /d, whatever your user ID is. We can also have /luster, /medusa, /netid, and those are just different folders on the same file system. The absolute path, we would specify /nix, /d, / or netid. So we would pick each and every folder name. For this directory, we would do /luster, /medusa, /netid. So that would give you to a different file. But we are also able to specify this from a relative path. So if I'm inside of NICS, from here, if I wanted to reference this directory, it's just d/netid, right? Because I'm already in here. So it assumes, oh yeah, that is much easier to see. Thanks, Mom. So the /nix is assumed because I'm already inside of this directory. If I'm inside this directory and I want to reference the netid, I have to do .. So that would be, the .. is shorthand for backup a file, so backup a directory. So .. gets me back up to here, luster, medusa, netid. So A single dot means where you are right now. 2 dots means go back a directory. So going back to our Finder, from here, if I said ... that would be referencing 2017-06-12. So from here, ... would be here. And another ... would be Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to move to the actual command line now. So on the command line, if you're like, oh, where am I? What you type is PWD for print working directory. When you're first learning the command line, you should be typing this all the time. Like when I was trying to figure out, and it's been a long time, but I remember being a student and trying to figure out how to navigate a file system. And PWD is your friend. It will tell you where you are right now. And will really help you to think about and figure out what's going on. So in this case, when you log in, you're not in the root of the file system. You are actually in your home directory. Your home directory has a path /nick/d/home/whatever your student ID is, presumably. So inside of this directory, if we want to see, like when we open it up in the Finder on your Windows or Apple machine, it shows you what's in there. So we're in a folder, what's in there? The command to see what's in there is ls. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff in my home directory. You guys probably don't. If you're, I don't know what comes by default, but probably nothing. So if you got nothing back, that means there's nothing in there. Once we put stuff in there, it'll give you a listing. My terminal gives me some nice color indicators. So blue means this is a folder. So it's not a file, it's a folder. It has more stuff in it. Whereas black means that is an actual file. But we can't live in our home directories forever. So we do need to be able to change directories. CD is shorthand for change directories. So if I want to back up one directory, I'm in Nix D home Staten. If I want to back up and be in the home directory, I type CD ... And you'll see my little prompt change from a tilde to home. Tilde is shorthand for home directory. So if you're ever at a command prompt and you see the tilde, that just means you're in your home directory. It's going to try to tell you what directory you're in all other instances. It's going to give you the actual name of the directory. So it's telling you it's home. If we wanted to get back in to our user directory, for me, I would CD into mstaten1. You would CD back into whatever your ID is. So we move back a directory and then we move forward a directory. So as long as you know the name of a directory and where it is, you can navigate to it. I can change directories so that was a relative path. I backed up based on where I currently was and then went forward. But I can also CD Nix D mstaten1, I know, home. Okay, so I know that that's a legitimate path. I can change into it. I'm back into that home directory. And I can CD into mstaten. So you can use the ... as a relative path, or you can specify that whole long path name. One of the things that you learn quickly with command line is it really helps to be a good typer. There's lots of typing. When you do this for a long time, you become very fast at typing, but there's a few shortcuts that will help you. And one of them is tab complete. So if I do CD/N and hit tab, magically completes the word for me. So that's going to save you, that saves you 4 keystrokes right there. So tab complete is great. It's going to say, is this computer smart enough to figure out what you want? So let's say you had a directory with red, green, and yellow in it, just files named red, green, and yellow, and you said R tab. It's going to say, oh, you mean red. I know you mean red. There's nothing else that starts with red. If you added pink and purple and you hit P and tab, it's not going to do anything. So I don't know if you mean pink or purple. There's 2 P things here. So as long as you have typed enough of the word to be unique, it'll fill it in for you. So if you hit tab and it doesn't fill it in, don't get frustrated. That just means you might need to add a few more letters. So CD Nix D And if I hit tab, it's just going to tell me, yep, that's the end of the word and give me my /h tab. And here, if I type M and hit tab, nothing happens. There's clearly folders in that file. There's probably other users with usernames that begin with M. So I can keep adding letters and hitting tab. And it took MSTAT before it would autocomplete. So there's somebody else with the username, MSTAT something. So that's how tab complete works. Try to remember to use it because it'll make you faster. It'll make it a lot easier to move around on the file system. You can also use the up and down arrows. So if you knew you wanted to back up again, you could just keep up and down arrowing to see all your previous commands. It's basically just a list. And you can hit enter and rerun something. You can also add, you can go back and edit. So again, this is a huge time savings when you're typing. Yep, Archie? Ooh, you have to set your history length. And I don't know what the default is. At least a couple hundred. 2,000, 1,000. Okay. I think you can set your history to be as long as you want though. Yeah. And then you just have to arrow back down to get back to, if you want to get back to an empty prompt, or if you accidentally are arrowing up too fast and you go past the one you want, you can arrow back down through the list. So hopefully both of those tips are going to really help you to type faster and be faster on the command line. Any other questions right now? Good. File system it can be challenging to learn, so we're just going to work through it slowly. And like I said, 2 p.m. come back for help if you want to go through it. And then tomorrow, Miriam has this really fun file system game, and we're going to compete for candy. So the better you understand the file system, you get candy tomorrow. It can be very, and anyone who left, you're going to want to team up with them because they probably know how to do this. Okay, so so your home directory, we can keep up to 2 gigs of information before Beacon is gonna call and say, hey, you're using up too much space in your home directory. So 2 gigs isn't much, but I think it's plenty for our little tiny Linux review. Starting tomorrow, we'll move into the Scratch, but I think we're okay to stay here for now. But if you were interested in the Scratch, it's in Lustre. So I just typed LU tab, Medusa, ME tab, Lustre, Medusa, and then whatever your username is. Those get created for student accounts, right? Scratch space?
Maybe.
Did that work? No, okay. That's okay. Yeah, actually that would be helpful because they're gonna need about, what would you guys say, 20 or 30 gigs for the sample data for the class, and we were gonna stick it in the Scratch system. Okay.
I'll see that, or maybe I'll work on that too.
Yeah, we could stick them all in the project directory too if you'd prefer.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, whichever you prefer.
Yeah,
okay. So if you are somewhere else, get back to your actual home directory.
It's there.
Oh, it is there. Oh, okay.
But there is tons of stuff in it, so I assume it's multiple users.
Yeah, you can wipe everything out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to skip ahead and we're going to learn how to remove things.
Because I mentioned earlier, I am in a different
Oh, you're not a student user. You're a real. You have your username. To the Lustre Medusa. What happens if can you CD the Lustre Medusas? Do STD?
Yeah, there's tons of STD directories. There's 150 of those.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But the STD0030 doesn't seem to exist, so maybe some do, some don't.
I even got a couple files.
I think they should have. So
that's probably from a previous class, right?
Lustre is not on login, so if you're on the login, Lustre won't be there. It's only on Beacon.
I think oh, okay. Okay, so.
Because Lustre's not mounted on the login.
So now that I have completely confused everybody, let's just all CD back to our home directory. Next D home, and then your student ID. Or yes, you can also do CD tilde, and that'll take you right back. So tilde is always shorthand for your login directory, for your home directory.
So the C, D, this is all kind of random, because I think
Yes, my count is on C, so that D could change.
yeah. So I think that letter is whoever.
Oh, this changes?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
we've
whoever.
got
A through
Oh.
E.
So the
Yeah.
base A through E.
And that's random.
It's kind of random, Robin, just we got it.
So if you CD the Nix A home.
It could be A. I have B.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you would need to print working directory. So mine's always been D, so I assumed everybody would always be D. Sorry, guys. You learn so much about a computing system when you teach, because when you're preparing materials, all you can see is your own user and home directory, and you don't know what everybody else is going to look like until you get students in there and start finding out. Okay.
Yeah, but if they did type the PWD earlier, just realize that D or E might be different. You originally logged in to type PWD, that gave you the full path where you're.
But often you don't need that. You just CD to tilde and it will take.
Yeah, you can also just type CD and hit enter.
CD what?
CD enter. So I can CD root, CD and nothing. It's going to pop me back to my home directory.
The same thing. It's different ways.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the great thing about Linux. There's multiple ways to do the exact same thing.
So you get to learn them all.
All of it can be confusing. All of it.
Yeah. Yeah, equal opportunity confusing. Okay. So if you're not in a place where you see a tilde, red sticky, and someone will come help you. But let's learn how to start creating file structure. So we can make a directory, and the shorthand for that is make dir, mkdir, Linux tutorial. So I hit enter, and it doesn't really give me any feedback if that worked or not. It just kind of returned. So I'm going to type ls. And indeed, I have a Linux tutorial directory now. So you can see up here, I didn't have one. Now I do. I've made a thing. I created a folder. Yes, I created a folder. And now you've created the folder, but you're not inside the folder. You need to move inside of the folder if you want to create things in the folder. So this is the equivalent of like double clicking on the file folder icon. It opens that folder and you're inside of it. We're going to cd. So I'm just going to type li tab, and it didn't work. Oh, my computer seems to have frozen. I may have to log back in. Yeah, if you hit tab, it should work. I literally can't do anything at the moment. Should we all log out and log back in?
We broke it. Oh, there it comes. It's
Oh.
slow. It's slow.
So all of my inners finally caught back up. So should we go ahead and start working on getting the interactive session so that we're not clogging up?
We can't do that. Try that and see how that goes.
Okay. So Bobby, if you would be kind enough to walk us through the qsub command, and I will actually edit it on the home page as we go.
As you're at the prompt, qsub.
Okay, it might take a second.
Okay.
I think that was on Chrome. Yeah. So I'm going to just edit our notes in real time. So
This would be a great test to see if this works. No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah.
I
have to like.
I tried to work for me. Hope it works for you guys.
And anyone else who typed qsub, did it show up? Okay. Good Lord. You guys don't have to worry about doing what I'm doing. This is just so that I can edit our class notes, which are currently incorrect about how to log in. All right. So now I can edit. So it's going to be Q sub. We still have the dash I, right?
Q sub dash I and space. You can leave that dash A, UT.
And it's going to be.
Times 2. And into that, put comma, nodes equals 1, colon. Shared axis, SHRD ACC.
Okay. And so this wall time means how long you want the session for. So for example, we wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't request 2.5 hours right now because we don't plan on being in here for 2.5 hours. We plan on being in here for another 45 minutes. So you can alter that wall time to just be the amount of time you actually need, which is really helpful for getting your Q sub job, your interactive jobs to run. Like the shortest amount of time you think you'll actually be using it means that they launch significantly faster. So now I save that, and if everybody refreshes the course page, that should come up accurately. Okay, so I still can't get anything to happen. Oh, okay, I'm back. So it was dash I. You may want to just copy this.
Yeah, you should go.
The allocation number, like I still haven't been able to memorize that. Okay. So now I'm waiting for my job to start. So basically, let me see if I can illustrate what's happening here. We're all sitting here in EPP, and then we have the internet. Then there's a login node over, it's in Oak Ridge, right? So Oak Ridge National Lab has this computer, and it's connected to lots of other computers. So we have SSH to here, and now we're all sitting here, and it's really busy. It's like, I can't handle all you people. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, give me a session on a computing node. So these are all these other computers that we call computing nodes. And it's going to pop each one of us. Well, we have 4. So maybe 4 of us will end up on this one, and 4 of us will end up on this one, and 4 of us will end up on this one. And then because we're using 4 computers instead of 1, the computer's going to be able to handle all of this. So this is the original SSH. This is our new Q sub. We're requesting access to these other computers. Yes, all of these are in Oak Ridge. And there's lots and lots and lots and lots more than just these 4. So that's what's going on. And this is because anybody on campus can log into this login node. You want to be pretty judicious with what you do. You can move around, you can install software, but you don't want to run your computational jobs here, because if everybody did that, the computer wouldn't work. And people who run Beacon will get very mad. So anytime you want to do something that takes more than a few seconds to run or takes some memory, you want to go ahead and request a computational node. That way everybody gets the resources they need, and we don't all run into each other on this login node. Okay, my job launched, yay. Hands or green stickies if your job launched and you have an interactive session.
I'll just type in.
Yeah, just type in,
yes.
Or copy and paste it from the home page or from the course page. Yes.
Where is it?
It should say something about logging in. What are you gonna say? How do you?
Oh, how do you determine how much wall time you need for any given space?
Oh, it's so hard.
In this case, I would just put like an hour because I'm going to be here longer than an hour.
Right.
Yeah, it's 45 minutes.
Yes.
So if you don't know, like if I'm sitting down this afternoon and I'm like, I'll probably get interrupted in an hour or two, because theoretically in my mind I would like to work for this on 4 hours. I'll put 4 hours. But if it's an actual computational job and you don't know how long it's going to take, that's really hard. And a lot of times we'll just run pilot jobs and try to figure out a file of this size usually takes us long to run, but you'll mess it up. So if you ask for an hour and it actually ends up taking longer than an hour, then the job will fail and you'll log back in and you'll try with like 3 hours. And then,
So ask 24 hours.
Well, you got to be careful about asking for 24 hours
Yeah.
because it makes it harder to get your job, and it's got to look on the spot for 24 hours. You really want to find the right number. Okay. You want to find the
this is
minimum
going to
number
be
that
the
fits.
hardest thing for new users, because in Newton was a very like underutilized grid. Like there's just a lot of computing power. So that's what I did. I put 24 hours on everything. Just because there's no reason not to, it would launch. Like it didn't matter. These new systems, that's not going to work as well. So I did, and you'll remember my first array job was a complete disaster because I put 24 hours on everything and it took 2 weeks to run. So you do have to try to scale back, like have more reasonable expectations about how long your job will run. And a good way is to log in on an interactive session and there's a command called time. You can actually time things and see how long they take. And then come back, and then if you have to run a bunch more files, you'll have a better estimate.
Still, they explain the UNCT and 031.
After you QSubbed, we'll just cd space ... and you can back up.
Can you explain the -I, -A?
Yeah, so this is a pretty, the QSub is a very sophisticated command that takes a lot of different arguments. And so in our case, we're saying we want an interactive job. So you can also use the same command to submit a script. It says go run, this is the, go do my bidding on many nodes, and I'm gonna go have coffee. But we don't wanna do that. We're gonna actually stay here and interact with the computer. So that's the interactive. The -A, this is for our allocation for our class. So we're gonna use this to basically say we have some compute hours set aside for this class. If you get your own allocation for research, that'll be different. And then -L is just some more parameters. We want 2.5 hours of time. We want 1 node, but we're gonna have shared access, which means multiple people on the class can share access to a node.
And then this would be the standard. You said UT system 1.
You use 0241.
Yeah.
So those are projects, and projects have a certain amount of allocation associated with it. So you might be on multiple projects with different research groups. And you don't want to charge one researcher's time to another researcher's project. So this is a way of accounting for your allocation usage. On the shared account that everybody can get access to, there's not really an allocation per se. Everybody just kind of gets on there for one job and that particular allocation.
Is anyone having problems that don't have a QSub command? Anybody who's still in the login node might have a problem. Okay, log out. So type exit. And then SSH to change that login to QSub. You can arrow. Oh, no, that's perfect. I didn't even see you hit that there. Perfect. So you're good. Hit enter. All right, and hit enter and then pin plus log. So your 4-digit pin and then your 6-digit. What did you call them? Tokens?
Token.
Oh, token thingamajig is what I call it half the time. Bongle. I'm like, I don't know how else words for it. Anyone else having problems with QSub? If you are on the next login, it will not work.
So what should they?
Okay, log out. So check exit.
Oh, so that's start things again.
Wait. Oh yeah.
Everybody else okay? Everybody else got your interactive session right? Yes, it worked.
Oh, she already has a beacon account. She's not part of our class. Can we add her to the class?
Yeah, sure.
Or you can just log on a beacon and we'll press. You'll end up with your own node, but we can fix that for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, so you want to be a member of the class, so. Quick way.
Can you just do an interactive session?
Yeah, you can do an interactive
Just
session.
see the launches.
You won't be able to do the shared access piece. You drop off the shared access.
We made it world. Oh wait, shared access. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
go
get
shared
on the nodes,
access.
those 4 nodes. You have to
So, figure out your own.
I'm sorry, share.
Oh. So S-A-R-P-A-C.
It's not gonna let you choice.
Oh, yeah, get rid of that one. Okay, yeah. And then I think there was AC then. S-H-R-A-C. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so to give you the this problem.
Okay, red city is anybody who's not logged in with QSub. If you're the bottom of your screen does not look like this up here. Red city.
We still have to wait for
Oh, we're not. This is we can move forward as soon as everybody's here. It should return when you get a new prompt. Like it'll hang right here for a while. And then all of a sudden you'll get this and you'll know that you're on. Yay. And you can see what node you're on. If you type uname-a, I can see that I'm on Beacon 003. But we may be on different computers, which is the beauty of an HPC. Oh, okay, you're right. I don't have that set up all the way. I'm like, my gosh, RC. So it's like really funny when I have to get up and do all that RC. I call it like customizations of my prompt. Who is not a good QSub? Who is not? Okay.
You kicked me out.
I thought about like taping the little keychain thing to my computer so I can't lose it. Oh no. Maybe it's not letting us log in anymore. Maybe it'll take time. Tell her I'll get that sorted out. She said,
I just go to the file. But essentially, what we did is we looked into a node, and now we can essentially run something, right?
You can run stuff. Yay! Yes, that's the point. So, and now there's few of us on a node that the node isn't going to lock up, and so you could actually run like real computational jobs now, as well as just regular Linux commands. Yeah.
It doesn't run
R. Okay, so there's a module system that we don't talk too much about the module system. But yes, I will point you in the right direction after class. It's easy to load software. Okay, so everyone should be able to see their home directory, see the Linux tutorial. So if you've been able to make dir your Linux tutorial, and cd into it. Okay, so our next big hurdle that we're going to try is to copy. We have prepared some class materials for us to practice with, and we're going to attempt to copy them into our home directories. So the command for copy is cp. So again, lovely little shorthands that if you don't remember, use your cheat sheet. Copy, Luster, Medusa, Proj. So this is presumably if you got a project allocation where your project would also go. Let me see if I can move my head somewhere else so you guys can actually see what I'm typing. UT. Again, this is a great use of the UT-tab, complete, all that other stuff. Linux tutorial, gene counts. So I'm going to say there's a file. It's in this folder, this folder, this folder, this folder, that folder. And finally, the name of the file is genecounts.txt, and I want to copy it right here. So the period is shorthand for right here. So the structure of the copy command is copy where you want it currently exists, and then you put where you want it to exist. So that's always the structure of the copy command, where it currently is to where you want it to exist. So we have this file, the gene counts, that we prepared for this lesson, and we want each of you to copy it into your own home directory. So it worked for me. Did it work for anyone else? Okay, good. We can also copy a file. So, oh wait, if you do an ls, you should now see it. Yay, we have a folder. We have a file, I mean. So we can actually make copies of files inside of directories. So we can say, and it's green, that's right. And I don't know, I'm gonna take a wild guess that has to do with the permissions on the file. Yeah, but, right. I think I blanket permissioned all of our class materials into probably not good. It's not actually an executable file, it's just a text file. But we're not ready to teach permissions yet, we'll get there. Executable, yeah. That's because I have the permissions all messed up, but they're not totally messed up. I just like blanket permissioned all of our course materials. I put execute permission on everything. So anyway, if let's say we have this file and maybe we wanted to change it, manipulate it, but we wanted to keep a copy of it, its original form as well. So we want to make a copy of this. I could make let me just stop. Gene counts dot copy dot text. So I can just say I want to take where it currently exists is this name, and where I want it to exist is with this new name. At this point, I have not specified any directories because I'm operating within my current directory. So as long as everything you want to happen is inside of your current directory, you don't have to use the entire path. And now if I do an ls, I have a copy of my file. It may be worth learning at this point ls-l. So if you want to know a bunch more information about your files, you can do the -l. A bunch of what probably looks mostly like gobbledygook comes up. This over here is what we were just talking about with permissions. That's who has access, and we're not going to worry about all that. But basically, I'm the owner. There's some more information, including when the file was created, and then your file names. These are the size of the file.
So those X's are the answer.
Right. So if you do ls-lh, oh, that didn't work.
It makes the 8 to 8K. I think the size.
Yeah. So now you can see that instead of 8, it has 8K. So it's a more human readable size. Normally it'll change these 935s too. But the file might not.
They're very small.
They're too small. So it's less than a kilobyte. So it doesn't change anything. But we'll see examples later on where that will be useful information. So to copy an entire directory instead of just a file, you need to use an additional flag on the command line. So you do copy and you immediately put -r. And R stands for recursive. And that means don't just get the folder, get everything inside of the folder. So if you want to, let's say you have a folder, it has 10 files in it, you want the whole thing to get copied, use this -r flag. So we're going to do Luster, Medusa, Proj, UT10, Linux tutorial, samples, and we can put a star, or we can, I think the first example is just like that. So I'm going to just leave everything inside of that samples directory. I want to copy it to my current location. And now we have that folder. And here's another nifty thing. So I can say, instead of cding into samples and listing the files, I can just ls samples directly. So I want to say list everything inside of my samples folder. And it tells me I've got a FASTA file, I've got sample A, sample B, and sample C.txt.
Copy the full Linux tutorial.
Yes, you could. You could do that, yes. You can also, it's a very slightly different command line. And I can put a star. So just like when you're searching on Google or other websites, if you put a star, this is a wild card. It says match anything. And in this case, instead of copying the whole directory, it's going to just copy the contents of the directory. So this is an example of how one single little character on the command line can make a big difference in how things work. So if I do that, what do you think is going to happen if I type ls now? Any guesses? Yeah, so now that first command where I did not have a star copied the whole folder. This command where I had a star, this expanded to match everything inside that folder, and so it copied those individual files into my current directory. So instead of copying the directory, it copied the files. So if you're frustrated with how Linux works, it's sometimes because these like little tiny one character changes can actually make a big difference in the behavior. So in this class, definitely feel free to ask us if you have any questions about why things work the way they do.
So then these 2 copies of sample A, B, and C, then?
Yes.
Inside the sample folder.
Yes, so I have a copy here, and I have a completely different copy in the samples folder. So I now have 2 copies of each file. So this is, you know, when you're like emailing a paper back and forth to a collaborator and you have like 8 versions, and yeah, we're building up lots of copies. So the next command we're gonna learn is move. So oftentimes you want to rename a folder or a file, and you can do that. Or you can move a file into a folder. So move has 2 uses. One use is to change the name of something. Another use is to physically change the location of a folder or a file. So let's move our gene counts copy from, so we're currently in Linux tutorial, we have gene counts copy. Let's say we want to move that into the samples folder. We would move gene counts copy into the samples folder like that. So MV is the shorthand for move, CP, MV, RM. There's like lots of little two-letter shorthands. And now if we do an ls, our gene counts copy is gone from our current folder. But if we ls samples, we see that it has indeed been moved into the samples folder. So that was usage 1 of the move command. The move command is extra confusing because it's actually also can be used as a rename command. So here I have gene counts. I can move gene counts to gene counts with capital G and C. And now if I ls, the file is still there and has just been renamed. So 2 uses of move worth learning. The next command we're gonna visit is remove, which is RM. So let's ls samples. We still have all of our stuff in there. Let's say we do not want our gene counts copy anymore. You can say remove samples gene counts copy.txt. So this is an example of a relative path. I'm saying remove a file from our current directory. It is in samples folder, and this is its name. And it's gone. So if you look in samples, it's no longer there. And it did not ask me, are you sure? It is very easy to remove things on this system. And once you remove them, they are gone forever. So you'll want to use the RM command judiciously. And we can also remove things locally. Like I can make a directory called temp. Now if I ls, my temp directory shows up. And then to remove temp, there's a couple things you can do. You can do rmdir, and it goes away. But we can also make dir temp, and it comes back. And we can do remove -r. So that's recursive. That same recursive flag that works on the copy command can also be used on the remove command. And that's going to get rid of it. So if you just do remove in a directory, it's going to tell you no. I'm not going to remove a directory with rm command. You either have to do rmdir or rm-r. So we've moved some files around and we've created some folders, and but we haven't actually looked at what's inside any of these files, which is a critical skill to be able to do. One of the easiest ways is to use a command called cat. And cat is short for concatenate. And basically that's just going to spit the text of the file out onto the command line. It's not the file itself. It's not going to allow you to edit. It's just going to show you what's in there. So if I cat our gene counts file, it's just going to spit all of that on the screen and return you to your prompt. So if it's a small file, if you do this to a giant genome-sized file, it's going to scroll very, 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 very long time. So you don't really want to do this to a very long file. But if it's a short file and you're just curious what's in there, you need to copy paste, you just want to take a peek, cat is a good way to do that. Oh, if you accidentally type cat and nothing, it's sitting there and it's waiting on you, and you need to exit from this state. The way to exit is Control-C. Control-C is your friend. If you have done anything crazy and the command line is just hanging there and you have no idea how to get back to your command prompt and you're very confused, Control-C is always your first thing that I type, especially if I'm like stuck in no man's land, hanging out here, and I'm like, I'm hitting return, I can't get, I'm hitting escape, what do I do? Control-C is gonna get you back to your prompt. So that's a good one to write down and remember. So let's move on to very simple text editing. There are a ton of different text editors you can use on a Linux system. We're going to use an extremely simple one called Nano. We're going to use it because it's easy to learn and it's pretty straightforward. If you become a command line power user, you are going to want to move on from Nano to something more powerful. We have a combination of VI and Emacs users in my lab. They're both command line editing programs that are very powerful. They're a bit of a learning curve, but worth it in the long run if you're going to be doing a lot of code editing or file editing on the command line. That being said, we're going to stick with Nano. Not very feature rich, but serviceable. And to run Nano, you just type Nano and then give it your file. And it fills up your whole screen, like the little program takes over your whole terminal and gets rid of, like, your history is still there, you just can't see it, so don't panic. And it's like a little text editor. Your mouse will not work. You cannot use your mouse to click around inside this file. You have to use your arrows. So I can arrow down, I can hit return, I can add some text and arrow back and do some more stuff. So editing is working. And then this is your little control panel, which is going to tell you all of your keyboard shortcuts to do things. So I can exit. Write out is the equivalent of save. So if you're like, I've saved my changes, and so that they don't get overwritten, that's Control-O. If you're scrolling through a file, a really big file, and you want to page up and down, you use Control-Y and Control-V. And I don't use the most of the rest of these. But okay, if I do Control-X, so I haven't saved anything, but I've modified the file. So it says, do you want to save modified buffer? And basically, this is just saying, do you want to save your changes? Don't worry about modified buffer part. Just, do you want to save your changes? Y for yes, N for no. Control-C for cancel, which will take you back into Nano. So I'm going to say, yes, I do want to change. And now it's going to give you the opportunity to save your changes under a different file name. So at this point, if you want to keep your own file and keep your new file, your new changes as a separate file, you could alter this. I am not going to alter this name. I'm just going to save my changes on top of the file. So now if I do cat gene counts and I scroll up, you can see my changes made it. They really got saved into my file. Yeah, so you can explore Nano more. We'll be using it a good bit during this course. You can search with Control W. Oh, to use the cursor in Nano, type nano-m file. Huh. So you can play with that. There's some notes on the homepage. I don't ever use Nano, so I may have, either I wrote this or Thomas wrote this last year. There's ways that you can actually highlight and copy paste text, and we can play with those if you need them. Okay, now when I did cat and I spit that whole file to the terminal, that was fine because it's only 50 lines long. But let's say I had a file that was thousands of lines long or millions of lines long. We wouldn't necessarily want to do that. We still might want to take a peek at the file and see what's in it. And a really useful command for that is head. So head gives you the top of the file, as you might imagine from the word head. And by default, it's going to give you only the first 10 lines. If I want to specify a certain number of lines, like I just want to look at the top 2 lines, I can just give it a -2 as a command line option, and it's only going to give me the top 2 lines. The opposite of head is tail. I'm guessing you guys know what tail does. By default, it gives you the bottom 10 lines of a file. So as data scientists, head and tail are your friend, because if you get a file and you don't know what the format is, you don't know if it's complete, you're trying to figure out like what's going on, what have they sent me, head and tail are going to allow you to take a peek at a file without having to open up and load the whole thing into memory. So for us, we get reference genomes or sequence data. You do not want to try to open your multi-gig sequencing file in Nano. Don't try it. Good things will not happen. Head and tail, make sure it looks legit, maybe run some QC software. But that's my recommendation. Don't try to directly edit or open sequence files in Nano. It just doesn't work out well. All right, so with that, I am going to switch over to Abdullah to keep teaching. And in the meantime, if you are at all confused about anything, red sticky or stay after for help, and we'll wrap up. We've only got about 13 minutes, so.
Should probably get my laptop.
Oh, you want to keep mine?
Okay, so a quick other command that can be really helpful is the find command. It allows you to search your entire file system. Let's take a quick look at an example here. Find.-name, and we're going to give it sample A. We know that file exists. Once I hit find, it's going to give me everything that has that name, including the subdirectories that that file exists in. Let's take a quick look at the command itself, though. We know that the command is called find. The first argument in find is where do you want to search? When we gave it dot, that's simply saying right here, the working directory where I am. Name is just telling it this is the name of the file I'm looking for. And then whatever is in quotes, that's the term I'm searching for. In find itself, you can use, well, it's really important to point out that it's case sensitive if you use name. If you use the option name, this is case sensitive. If I look for the same thing, but with a small s, whoops, it's not going to find anything. But we can easily specify or tell it, and it's hanging, it's not working. Okay, here we go. We can easily tell it that to ignore the case by saying it will print iname. Okay, I stands for insensitive, so an insensitive name, and it's going to find it. All right, we can search anything. we know that we have a directory called samples. So we can start our search from the samples directory. Should I log out? Cancel or something? You can look over here and see where you guys are. Is everybody in all three?
I'm gonna do it.
Okay. So it's getting a little slow. It's not working.
Oh, you know what? It could also be that terminal because when I resized it, it messed up. So if you type things from scratch, it works. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix it. I'm gonna work on that later. I think there's a resize command.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I changed the shape of the terminal, and because we're tunneling through the login node to another computational node, when I resized the shape of the terminal, like the text at the bottom is doing really funky things. But if you just Control-C and retype, you can make it work.
Okay, so if we want to search the samples directory for the same file, we can simply say -i name and then sample-a.txt. And it's going to search only the samples directory. But it will also search anything. If there are more directories in sample, it's going to search even further than that, recursively. We can also, if we don't know the complete name of the file, we can say, we can use the wildcard character, just like we use the star. So anything that starts with an A, I want to find it. We'll give you anything that starts with an SA, sorry. Anything that starts with an SA, also case insensitive. All right? We can also do anything that contains an SA, simply by putting it in 2 wildcard characters. Begin with a wildcard, end with a wildcard means anything that contains SA will be displayed. Okay? There is another search command. However, this command will search a certain file. grep, and let's see what files we have here. We have file.fasta. Is everyone familiar with the FASTA file format? Okay, a few. If I say I want to search, okay, it's not working. grep this character from file.fasta. All right, so we're going to search for this character in this file. And it's going to give me every occurrence of that little character. If we look in the file, however, you're going to see that the sequences are there, right? But grep gave me only the line that contains that little character. We can search multiple files instead of only a single file, also using the wildcard character. So grep, let's say gene from everything here. So I will look for the word gene in all of the files, including directories. I'm even going to give us a little error. So the samples is a directory. So what if I want to search even inside those directories? Oh, just a quick note that it gave us the name of the file first and where to find it. So if I want to search all the files recursively, even inside other directories, I would use a -r, just like we use in the cp command. R stands for recursive. So go in that directory and whatever directory is inside it and search all of the files for the word gene. Okay? grep also takes the I option so that you can make it case insensitive. grep -ir or -i on its own will say case insensitive for the word tissue. Oops. Okay. Okay. Yeah, some tissue is there somewhere. There it is. Okay. We have 5 minutes. Should we get into redirection and piping or take questions? Okay.
The one last thing that I think is really worth doing, if you want to work through the rest of the tutorials on your own, there's a ton of good stuff in there. Not all of it will be used in the course, but if you want to be a command line person, like there's a lot of stuff that it's good to know in there. We'll briefly talk about man.
Okay. So
this is how you actually figure out when you don't have us sitting next to you at your desk what's going on.
So that little cheat sheet you have has maybe one line description of what the command does. Doesn't give you any of the options or any of the cool stuff you can do with a certain command. So man stands for manual. You can give it any command there, like cd, for example, and it will give you a description, options, everything you can do with that command. It's a lot. It's like a real manual.
Yeah, so manuals they tend to be very, very, very long.
Yeah.
You figure out how to use a command, every possible flag, usage, argument, they're all in there. You can also just go to Google and type Linux command, which I'm not gonna lie, it's like my preferred method for pretty much everything. And it will get you to a lot of information. And oftentimes some of the pages on Google will have more practical examples instead of long, dry manuals. But the manual is always there for you if you need it on the command line. What else? Super essential to know. Oh, to get out the Q.
Oh, Q.
Control C.
Yeah, Control C is always your friend.
But also just let our Q will get out.
Maybe we could.
If you do manual, you can scroll with the.
Yeah. So there's a command called less. I think this is helpful to know. You've learned about cat, head, and tail. Less, what was the name of the file? Gene count? Yeah. It's gonna show you just a portion, and you can scroll down and up just using the up and down arrows. And to quit, use the Q letter. That's it. You just type the Q letter. Any questions so far?
For the graph and font, it doesn't matter if it's a single quote, double quote.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
All right, so that was your lightning quick introduction to Linux. If you want to stay for half an hour, we're going to hang out and answer questions. If you want to go through the syllabus, talk about your RNA-seq paper, whatever, that's fine. We'll also be back at 2 p.m. If you're concerned about being able to specify files with their complete path or their relative path, we really need that to be working knowledge that you have in this class. So come back at 2 and we'll help you get there. Thank you very much. All right, awesome. Yeah, so let's try to fix this buffer.